The Blue Note Jazz Club in Chicago was packed on that Tuesday night in March 1957. Ella Fitzgerald was performing the second set of a three-night engagement, and the small, intimate venue was filled with jazz enthusiasts who'd come to hear one of the greatest voices in music. The first set had been perfect. The second set was going well, until Charlie started drinking. This is the story of what happened when a drunk heckler decided to interrupt Ella Fitzgerald mid-performance, of the moment she stopped singing and looked directly at him, and of the 3-minute improvised solo that turned his insults into legendary music, a moment so brilliant it would be talked about for decades. The Blue Note was one of Chicago's premier jazz clubs, small, intimate, holding maybe 150 people maximum. The kind of place where you came to really listen, not just to have drinks and conversation. The acoustics were excellent, the sight lines perfect. Everyone could see the performer and the performer could see everyone. Ella was 40 years old in 1957 at the absolute peak of her powers. Her voice had matured from the young girl who'd won amateur night at the Apollo into an instrument of incredible range, precision, and emotional depth. She could sing anything, standards, bebop, ballads, up-tempo swing. And she was in the middle of recording her famous songbook series, interpreting the great American composers with unmatched sophistication. The Tuesday night show had started at 9 p.m. The first set ran from 9 to 10:15, a mix of Cole Porter, Duke Ellington, and George Gershwin. The audience was respectful, attentive, appreciative. Jazz club audiences in places like the Blue Note knew how to listen. Understood you didn't talk during performances. You ordered drinks between sets. You gave the music the respect it deserved. After a 15-minute break, the second set began at 10:30. Ella opened with How High the Moon, her signature song where she'd showcase her incredible scat singing. The audience loved it. Then she slowed things down with Misty, a beautiful ballad that demonstrated her interpretive abilities. That's when Charlie started getting loud. Charlie was a regular at the Blue Note. Mid-40s, worked construction, came to the club most Tuesday nights. Usually he was fine, a few drinks, enjoyed the music, went home. But tonight something was different. Maybe he'd had a bad day. Maybe he'd been drinking before he arrived. Maybe he was just in a mood. During Misty, Charlie started making comments, not loud enough. Disrupt yet, but loud enough that people at nearby tables could hear him. Come on, sing something with energy. This is putting me to sleep. His companions tried to shush him, but he waved them off. Ella finished Misty to strong applause. She smiled, acknowledged it gracefully, and began introducing the next song. This next one is a favorite of mine, a beautiful Jerome Kern melody called Boring. Charlie shouted from his table near the back. The room went quiet. People turned to look. The club owner, standing near the bar, started moving toward Charlie's table. Ella paused mid-introduction. She'd dealt with hecklers before. It came with performing in clubs. Usually you ignored them. The club staff would handle it, ask them to be quiet or leave. You didn't engage. You stayed professional and continued the show. She decided to try once more. As I was saying, this is a Jerome Kern song that nobody wants to hear this. Charlie interrupted again, louder this time. Sing something good, something fast. You're putting everyone to sleep. Now the audience was uncomfortable. This wasn't playful banter. This was rudeness, disrespect. People started making disapproving noises. Someone told Charlie to shut up, but he was drunk enough not to care. The club owner reached Charlie's table. Sir, you need to be quiet or I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I paid for my drinks, Charlie said belligerently. I can say what I want. Ella stood at the microphone, watching this unfold. She had choices. She could wait for the club owner to remove Charlie. That would take a few minutes, disrupt the show, make everyone more uncomfortable. She could ignore him completely and just start singing, but he'd probably keep interrupting. She could acknowledge him briefly and move on, or she could do something else entirely. Ella held up a hand to the club owner. It's okay, she said. Let him stay. The owner looked uncertain. Miss Fitzgerald, I can have him removed. No need, Ella said calmly. Then she looked directly at Charlie. You want something good. You want something with energy. Yeah. Charlie said, emboldened. Something worth listening to. Ella smiled, not a warm smile. A smile that people who knew her well would recognize as slightly dangerous. All right, I'll give you something good. She turned to her pianist, Paul Smith, and whispered something. He grinned and nodded. Then she looked at her bassist and drummer. Blues in F, medium fast tempo. Follow me. The band started playing. A simple blues progression, steady tempo, nothing fancy. just a foundation for whatever Ella was about to do. Ella stood at the microphone and began to scat, but this wasn't normal scat singing. This was something else entirely. Ba-doo-BORING-bee-dop, she began, warming up her voice, establishing the basic bebop vocabulary. Her tone was clear, controlled, setting the foundation. Then, without warning, sing something good. She scatted, perfectly mimicking Charlie's slurred cadence, his drunk emphasis on something, the way his voice had gone up at the end. The audience laughed. She turned his heckle into melody, made his hostility musical. Ba-ba-boring-bee-dop, do boring bee. She continued, incorporating his insult into the rhythm, repeating it like a motif in classical music, making boring swing in a way that was anything but boring. More laughter. People were catching on to what she was doing. This wasn't just clever, this was musically sophisticated revenge. Charlie, drunk but not stupid, realized he was being mocked. Hey, he started to object. Too slow. Ella scatted immediately, cutting him off by using his own words, the timing so perfect it was like she'd scripted it, taking his interruption and making it part of the composition. She dragged out slow into a long note, then immediately followed it with rapid-fire syllables, ba-doo-bee-dop, ba-doo-bee-dop, ba-doo, demonstrating that she could be as fast as humanly possible when she wanted to be. The audience was fully engaged now, leaning forward in their seats. This wasn't just scat singing. This was a master class in improvisation, musical wit, and real-time composition. Ella was taking every insult, every interruption, and transforming it into music. Not just referencing it, actually incorporating the rhythm, the tone, the emotional content into her solo. Nobody wants to hear this. She sang, making his words swing, putting them on the upbeat where they created tension, then resolving that tension with a beautiful melodic phrase that proved beyond doubt that people did want to hear this. The band played behind her, Paul Smith's piano comping perfectly, giving her space to work while maintaining the harmonic structure, feeding her chord changes she could play against. Charlie tried again, his pride wounded. You're not even, Ba-doo, you're not even bebop, Ba-doo-bee. Ella interrupted him musically, stealing his words before he could finish the sentence, turning them into a descending chromatic run that ended on a blue note. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. She was literally conducting a conversation through scat, using his own heckling as her raw material, proving that any sound, even hostile ones, could become music in the right hands. Now she started getting really creative. She took the rhythm of his interruptions, the drunk, unsteady cadence, the way his words stumbled over each other, and made it musical. Ba stumble do slur be drunk bop ba wobble dee. The audience was howling with laughter. Even people who'd been genuinely annoyed by Charlie were now enjoying themselves because Ella had transformed obnoxiousness into entertainment, turned disruption into art. She started building the solo architecturally, the way a bebop player would, started with Charlie's phrases as her theme. Then began developing variations. She took boring and harmonized it against the chord changes, finding notes that made the word sound like the most exciting melodic content ever created. She took too slow and played with the tempo against it, speeding up and slowing down to demonstrate her complete control of time and phrasing. Charlie's face was getting red. His companions at the table were trying not to laugh but failing. The entire room was watching Ella musically dismantle this heckler without saying a single direct, spoken word to him. Everything was through the music, everything was improvised, everything was brilliant. She incorporated more of his phrases, but now she was arranging them like a composer. Something with energy. She scatted with incredible energy, hitting high notes in her upper register and executing fast runs that demonstrated exactly how much energy she possessed, making energy itself sound energetic through her note choices and rhythmic placement. Worth listening to. She sang with such musical sophistication, complex harmonic substitutions, unexpected interval jumps, quotes from famous bebop solos that it proved beyond any doubt that this was worth listening to. Then she started playing with dynamics, adding another layer of musical commentary. She'd scat loud, boring, fortissimo with full voice, then immediately quiet, ba-doo-bee-doo whisper, pianissimo, intimate and subtle. Loud again, too slow. Shouted, then incredibly fast, rapid-fire syllables moving at bebop velocity. Ba-doo-bee-dop, 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 ba-doo, all in the space of 2 seconds, demonstrating she could be as fast as anyone wanted and faster than Charlie's drunk brain could process. The band was eating it up. Paul Smith was grinning as he played. The bassist and drummer were locked in, supporting Ella's every twist and turn. They'd been playing with her long enough to follow wherever she went, and she was going somewhere spectacular. Ella built the solo higher and higher. Each phrase was more elaborate than the last. She was showing off now, not out of ego, but to make a point. You want good? Here's brilliant. You want energy? Here's explosive. You want something worth listening to? Listen to this. She climbed into her upper register, hitting notes that seemed impossible, came back down with a run that covered 2 octaves in 3 seconds, made the word boring sound like the most exciting thing ever sung. Charlie had stopped trying to interrupt. He was slumped at his table, realizing he'd picked a fight with the wrong person. The audience was on their feet now, still laughing, but also amazed at the sheer musical virtuosity they were witnessing. Ella kept going. Ba-doo-BORING-bee-bop Heckler Baba silenced. The audience roared. She just narrated what was happening in real time through scat. She started bringing it home. The band sensed the ending approaching. Ella built to a climax, a long, elaborate phrase that incorporated every insult Charlie had thrown, twisted them into musical gold, and ended with her highest, clearest note of the night, held perfectly, demonstrating absolute control. The note ended, silence for half a second. Then the room exploded. People were on their feet, applauding, cheering, laughing, not just because it was funny, though it was hilarious, but because they'd just witnessed something extraordinary. Ella Fitzgerald taking hostile interruptions and turning them into 3 minutes of brilliant improvised music, using a heckler's insults as raw material for genius. Ella took a bow, smiling, a real smile now, not the dangerous one from before. She'd enjoyed that more than she'd expected. Charlie sat at his table, thoroughly silenced. His companions were laughing, but not meanly. The whole thing had been so musically brilliant that even Charlie's embarrassment became part of something bigger, a legendary performance. The club owner approached Charlie's table again. I think you should probably go home now. Charlie nodded, stood up shakily, and headed for the exit. As he passed near the stage, he looked at Ella. For a moment they made eye contact. You're really good, he mumbled. I know, Ella said simply. The audience laughed again. Charlie left, and the show continued. Ella performed 3 more songs that night, all excellent, but everyone knew the real highlight had been those 3 minutes. The moment Ella Fitzgerald turned a drunk heckler into legendary improvisation. Word spread quickly through the Chicago jazz scene. By the next night, the Blue Note was packed with people hoping to see something similar. Ella's Wednesday and Thursday shows were both sold out. People came wanting to witness her brilliance, maybe even hoping another heckler would appear so they could see her musical put-down again. No one was drunk or stupid enough to heckle the Wednesday or Thursday shows. The story spread beyond Chicago. Musicians talked about it. Jazz critics wrote about it. Some called it the greatest example of improvised wit in jazz history. Others called it proof that Ella Fitzgerald was operating on a level most singers couldn't even imagine. What made it legendary wasn't just that she'd shut down a heckler. Lots of performers did that with a quick comeback. What made it legendary was how she'd done it. Purely through music, never breaking character as a performer, taking his disruption and making it art. Years later, musicians would cite that night as an example of true improvisation, of thinking musically in real time, of turning a negative into a positive, of the difference between being technically skilled and being genuinely brilliant. Some claim there was a recording, that someone had been running a tape in the club that night. If such a recording existed, it was never officially released. But the story persisted. Somewhere, allegedly, there existed a tape of Ella Fitzgerald destroying a heckler with 3 minutes of scat. Whether the recording existed or not, the story became part of jazz lore. The night Ella Fitzgerald turned boring into bebop, the night she made too slow swing, the night she proved that real artistry isn't about perfect conditions, it's about responding brilliantly to imperfect ones. In interviews later, when asked about dealing with hecklers, Ella would smile and say, most of the time you ignore them. But sometimes, if you're feeling creative, you can use them. Everything's material if you're listening right. Did you plan that response? Interviewers would ask. No, it happened in the moment. He kept interrupting and I just thought, why fight it? Why not make it part of the performance? Turn the disruption into the show itself. Were you angry? At first, yes. Then I realized being angry wasn't useful. Being creative was better. Making him part of the music was better. And embarrassing him musically was definitely more satisfying than having security throw him out. The Blue Note remained one of Ella's favorite venues. She returned many times over the years. The club owner would joke that they should hire hecklers just to see what Ella would do. "Please don't," Ella would respond, laughing. "Once was enough." That took a lot of energy, but she was glad it had happened. It became one of her favorite performance memories, not because she enjoyed being heckled, no performer does, but because it had pushed her to be creative in a way she hadn't planned, had made her improvise not just musically but conceptually, had proven to herself and everyone watching that she could handle absolutely anything thrown at her and turn it into art. March 1957, The Blue Note, Chicago, a drunk man named Charlie who wanted something good, and Ella Fitzgerald giving him something better than good, something legendary. 3 minutes of improvised brilliance, insults turned to music, a heckler silenced, an audience astonished. The night Ella Fitzgerald proved that true mastery isn't about controlling every variable. It's about responding brilliantly to variables you can't control. Ba-doo-BORING-bee-dop became a phrase other musicians would use, a tribute to that night, a reminder that sometimes the best performances come from the unexpected, from the disruptions, from the moments when professionalism meets improvisation and creates something nobody planned but everyone remembers. Charlie probably never heckled. Another performance in his life, and Ella never forgot that the best response to hostility isn't always confrontation. Sometimes it's transformation, taking what's ugly and making it beautiful, taking what's disruptive and making it music. That's what legends do.